So now we start, a little bit delayed. Hello, everyone. And we have a bit of time to look at the nature of appearance and how we can stay open and fresh in the midst of changing appearance. We live in a world where, of course, we see many problems. It seems obvious that we need to take many things very seriously. When something is serious, it's worthy of our thought, our respect. Um, it's something that's there in the world, something exists, which gives us an intensified sense of subject and object. If you have some unusual pain in your body, you might think you have to take it seriously and go to the doctor. Clearly, the virus is very threatening. Many hundreds of thousands of people have died. It's surely we should take that seriously. Political troubles, economic troubles, climate change. There are many important, heavy issues to attend to. This is the view as it appears from inside samsara. I am real, my life is important, these events are dangerous, so I have to take them seriously. And of course, day by day, week by week, year by year, new provocations arise, disturbances of how we are and what we imagine the future will be. It's very easy to be pulled into anxiety and worry. In some ways, anxiety and worry are born together with the importance of events. We find some things in this world meaningful to us, other things not so meaningful. And we want to protect the integrity of what is meaningful. This could be democracy or social justice, it could be ideas and values which clearly can help many, many people in their lives. And so we see, even in this very cold weather that's in Russia, there are people out on the street protesting about the government behavior and risking going to prison and being beaten. Inside the frame of reference of human life, of bringing security and justice and fairness into our world, these struggles are very important. Yet, of course, new provocations arise. The history is full of terrible events. Human beings behave badly. We don't expect lions and tigers to be vegan because we can see that they like to eat meat. So if we look around and see how unpleasant and cruel and selfish human beings are, why do we imagine they're ever going to be nice? Maybe such a hope is just a form of stupidity. The Buddha began by explaining that suffering is all pervasive. Each of the six realms of samsara has its own kind of suffering. So we were invited to look at the actuality of what occurs. What is happening? And he says, happening is happening. That is to say, everything is impermanent. Some appearance arises and vanishes. Some sensation arises and vanishes. A thought arises and vanishes. Of course, we can add on to the actual transient event our naming and our sense of what it actually is. Then, on top of that, we have our value judgments. This is good, this is bad, and our sense of how we might participate. How could we change something, either to help ourselves or to help other people? With this sort of response, we are moving in a field of our own interpretations. We think we are considering the world as it is, but in fact, we are considering our interpretation, which is to say our own mental construction. The actual appearance is arising and going. On the television, you can look at the news. It shows you what has happened. It's already happened. Even if there is a riot and they are filming the riot and you see the journalist having to dodge stones that are being thrown, You're watching impressions on a screen in front of you, the representation, not the immediate. The actual is always going. It is activity. Activity is movement. So we have a notion of play. As always, we encounter that the culture tends to cook whatever is simple. So something like a game of football, we say people play football, but it's a very sophisticated, rehearsed kind of engagement. At the beginning of the football match, the two teams line up and both have an intention and a hope that they can win. If they run around just looking, oh, let's see what happens, then the manager will not be very happy. We pay you to put this ball in the goal. So we are used to this kind of intentional activity. And as many of you know, this is also the basis for the accumulation of karma. Karma begins with being a subject and an object, a framework of separation and duality. I am not you, but I'm not entirely apart from you because I have an intention. My intention could be to help you or to harm you. When I see how you behave, I might want to get closer to you and be your friend, or I might think, oh, not for me, and I keep my distance. My intention establishes a connection between subject and object, or subject and subject, which, when I act, becomes strengthened into uh, an orientation of my energy. And I help you or I harm you, and then I'm happy that I helped you or happy that I harmed you. That is to say, there is a clear outcome to the performative action fulfilling my intention. And now I'm clear, I have done this. Now I have something to say. Oh, today I robbed Bartek. Oh, today I bought Bartek a beer. Something happened. Now, if we simplify our play, like children of 2.5, 3 playing on the carpet, we have our toys and our building blocks. We put them, arrange them in one pattern and then move them around. We're playing. If somebody asks us what we're doing, we say, I'm playing. If they say, what are you playing at? We tell them a story. This story may be completely fresh in our mind and was not at all connected with what we were doing. It's not that we're telling a lie, because even the story we tell about what we're doing, we don't take very seriously. It could be anything. And this is the meaning of play. With play, this kind of free, fresh play that children have, the performance of the body engaging in what it's doing and the interpretation are two parallel streams. As you put the toys out on the floor, something arises. The pattern, the colors, the shapes, some echo memory gives rise to, oh, I'll do this. And the idea in the body usually move quite quickly. Some intuitive um, possibility arises and your body's already engaged. For example, you might pile the building blocks one on top of each other in a big tower, and then you hit it and they all fall down. This is clearly very important, so you have to do it again. What are you doing? It's a stupid question. What is happening in the child's mind? It could be 1,000 different things. That is to say, the interpretation is not so important in terms of the activity. But by the time the child is 8, 9, the need to win and not lose becomes very important. I want to have success. Success allows me a moment of glory. So these worldly concerns are starting to permeate how I engage with the world. The fragility of my sense of self starts to be vulnerable to shaming. So we can apply this to meditation. There are many kinds of Buddhist practice which are like a game. They are rule directed activities. So if you do a tantric practice, say practice on Padmasambhava, you are engaged in following a set of rules. You have to do this bit 3 times, this bit 1 time, this bit 21 times. Ring your bell at this point with your vajra and your heart, then do your vajra and your bell, and try to do it at the same time as everyone else. So there's a lot to learn, because as we all know, conformity is the path to liberation. This is ironic. It is not true. Just so you're clear. From the point of view of Dzogchen, the mind is already free. What we do in Tantra is we make a parallel system to all the rules and regulations of the world, so that the view of form and emptiness, appearance and emptiness, can be woven into the meditational activity, which is quite complicated. So as we know, the Tantra is called the path of transformation. So if you have a job working in a factory or an office, what you do is important. If you don't do it right, you're going to get in trouble. Well, it's the same in the Dharma practice. You have to do it the right way. Otherwise, the Dharma protectors and the Dakinis get angry. So that you start to see that although everything is empty and doesn't have any inherent self-substance or existence, nonetheless, the shapes and structures and patterns of the world have an impact, and that impact has consequences. So you don't want to be late every day to get to work. So in visualization practice, you want to do things at the right speed and make sure that you purify the offerings before you offer them, and so on. So this is a game. It's like a game of football. If you are offside and you score a goal, your goal doesn't mean anything. The same with visualization. You have to have a bodhicitta in your heart and do it with a genuine concern for other people and an awareness of emptiness. These tantric methods are very powerful, but they take quite a lot of time to do. And if you're working all day, if not in, let's imagine it's not the time of the virus, so you go to work, you have travel time, working, travel home time, cooking, and so on. Then the thought of doing a long ritual practice is not so easy. Wow. Especially when you have to do it very precisely in the right way. But if we shift from playing a game to just playing, this more in the practice of Dzogchen. We are simply sitting, life is going on. We're not trying to control what is happening. Things happen, sounds, sensation in the body, thoughts, feelings, memories, comes in this pattern, then in that pattern. What does it mean? Nothing. Meaning begins when you take it seriously. When what is happening for you is something you really don't like or you really do like, then you have aversion and desire. You feel, sorry, I don't want my mind to be like this. I don't want this. How can I be me if I have a mind like this? So in order to preserve the shaping or patterning of the identity which you think you have, it becomes very important to make some adjustment. This is where you slip from play into game. This is the game of I exist and I'm a nice guy and I'm a serious Buddhist. Very important, but also a big problem. So let's go back to this favorite theme of thinking about ignorance and how the mind becomes obscured. From the very beginning, the mind is completely open. When we look for our mind, we don't find any particular thing. We find thoughts, feelings, memories, sensations, but each of these vanishes by itself. They are there, they are the familiar content of the mind, the flavors and richness of the structuring of ourself, but they vanish by themselves. This is how it is. We see this very briefly. We can't stay open because our mind thickens into a sense of a separate self. I don't know what it's like now, but in the old days in Sweden and in Canada, they would chop the trees down, slide them down the hill into the river so that they could be floated down the river to the sawmill. But often the logs would jam together. And then the men had to go out with special spiky shoes and a stick with a prod and go walk along the logs and run on the logs to get them turning and then try to push them. The river is flowing. The reason we put these logs into the river is so that they will flow. It's the same in the meditation. When you get a log jam, a blockage in your mind, when the ideas and feelings pack together, then you get a construct. You go off in a daydream. From the point of view of the ego, this log jam is wonderful because as the logs come together, you get the formation of structures. They are they are forming a compound that something is being built up by the placing together of these different pieces of wood. The activity of the ego is compoundedness. The ego operates in order to build up houses it can inhabit. But of course, just as the logs are not stable in the river, even if they are stuck together, our mental constructs also, even if we keep polishing them every day, are fundamentally unreliable. The ego is the doer, the maker, the builder, the constructor. It's not a separate autonomous entity with great power, although we might like to think that we are very powerful, wonderful people. We have both a knowing aspect and a doing aspect. If I know that I am walking, well, I am walking. That's pretty impressive. I walk myself. This is nonsense. I find myself walking. My walking is revealed to me by my knowing. Who is, who is the walker? The walker is our participation in the world. Self is not an isolate, although we think of ourself as being such. Our self is a mode of participation in the world. If you walk on wet grass or if you've had snow and ice, that you walk in a different way from on an ordinary pavement. The snow and ice walks you in a particular way. The sand on the beach walks you in another way when you have bare feet. That is to say, agency is not internal, it is participative. It is the meeting point of the field and our participation. So when patterns arise and we make sense of them, the patterns have already occurred. When the logs slip down the hillside and come into the river, because the log is arriving fast with a lot of force, you don't want to be near it. So when the logs turn and twist and meet each other, the log jam forms. It happens, but nobody does it. So if you go climbing in the hills and the rocks are stable for a while and then unstable, you don't need to have a big internal discussion to work out how to walk. You put your foot on an unstable rock and immediately your pelvis is moving, the muscles on either side of your spine are adjusting, so you maintain your balance. What I'm pointing to just now is that our sense of agency is largely a story or an interpretation told after the event. So if I'm on the mountain and I say, oh, I almost slipped, If my colleague says to me, "Why did you want to slip?" I said, "Don't be stupid. I didn't want to slip. I almost slipped. Slipping slipped me." So this is how the logjam goes, and we have to free it. When you sit in meditation, you find yourself suddenly off on a daydream. I got distracted. Distraction happened to me. Oh, Mr. King of the world, Mr. Master of everything, why did you distract yourself? I didn't distract myself. I got distracted. Who did this to you? It's your own mind. It just happened. Oh, yeah, Mr. Control. This is the actuality of our life. Happenstance, occurrence. So it brings us always to a kind of crossroads. Should I heighten myself, make myself sharper in order to try to control the pattern of happenstance? We know how to do this. When you're a child and you're learning to write, you get some of the letters the wrong way around, and you have to practice again and again. You learn to control your pen. Being able to control your body, your voice, your mind brings you rewards. However, when you stay close with the mind as it is, appearance, occurrence is arising by itself. It comes as it comes. Suddenly your mind is full of this idea, or your body is full of this sensation. So if you really see this, life is happening. And if I try to stay apart from it and make it happen the way I want it to happen, then I'm going to be at work all the time, keeping myself on track, making sure that the right things happen. Now, I might be willing to work hard, but the problem is the boss is not very reliable. The ego has moods. What it regards as important in the morning, it might not regard as important in the afternoon. So I have a variable field of arisings and very variable sets of criteria for evaluation and planning of intervention. This is why in Dzogchen they say you can't think your way out of samsara. You can't buy your way out of samsara with lots of merit and the accumulation of mantras and so on. Path of the ego of wanting to be in control is the path of delusion. It's not a polarity between being in control or out of control, but rather it's the middle way of working with circumstances. And if we're going to work with circumstances and not get tired, then we don't want to be in a reactive position where anything that happens becomes a provocation that makes us go into reactivity. Do I need to act at all? So this is the basis of Dzogchen meditation. When firstly we investigate to find, does our mind have any fixed position? Is it inside the body, outside the body? Is it big? Is it small? Does it have a color or a shape by which we could recognize it? Because if you can find where your mind is and position yourself with it, then you can stand in relation to whatever is occurring. We look for ourselves. Nobody can do this looking for us. You look, and there's nothing to find. There's nothing to find, and yet you're not dead, you're present, you're alive. So then we have to look. Am I alive as a what? As a something? Am I established in one particular way? We try to find that. Actually, I'm shifting. What I take to be me is not reliable. In fact, what I take to be me is a name that I apply to a particular patterning of movement in the field of movement. Now, if I am binding myself into aspects of movement in the flow of becoming, that is to say, this is happening, that is happening, then there is a grasping or an involvement here. In Tibetan, this is called Daksin. Dag means thing or I or entity. It is the somethingness of me and what I take to be the somethingness of you. Now, you in your life are flowing along, responding to thousands of movements in what's around you. Me too. This moment I say I'm like this, next moment I'm like that. Moment by moment, new constellations, new patternings of what I take to be I, me, myself. I'm like an infinite kaleidoscope. But I'm not the one turning the end of it around. Life is turning me in this pattern and that pattern. But the the sense of somethingness, which is also a sense of apartness, this is not that. This is very insistent. So there's something very strange. I am this. This is who I am. I say it with confidence and authority and power, but it's not true because how I am is changing. I am this for a while. I am a temporary construct. I am a tent, not a palace. In fact, I'm not even a tent, I'm just some branches and leaves put together as a nomad shelter. So the seeming items, the seeming particulars out of which or with which I make this self construction are inseparable from flow. They are impermanent. This is something we can all see for ourselves. When you have a little time, you can just sit in a comfortable way with your spine straight and relax in the out breath. And without editing or controlling, allow your life to manifest. There are noises outside, sensations on the skin, sensations inside the skin bag, memories, plans, here and then gone. I sit and coming, going, coming, going, coming, going, not coming like a bus coming up to the bus stop and then going away again. For example, you're sitting and suddenly you're aware of some little itch in your back. It wasn't delivered by the postman. It arose where it is. And if you just leave it after a while, it's gone. Phenomena arise in their own place and dissolve in their own place if we leave them alone. If we are willing to let go of the sense, I have to be in control of my life, I don't like this itch in my back, I have to scratch it. My skin should be a itch-free zone. My mind should be relaxed and peaceful. Should is easy to say. Should is the big boy's word. That's what the Queen can say. If the Queen says, you should do this, we all say, yes, Your Majesty. But unfortunately, in our little private kingdom, we've had a revolution. The royal ego says, you should do this. I am going to do this. But the fingers don't do what they should do. The memory doesn't do what it should do. It's a little bit workers' republic. Again, we have the problem of control. Because if you start from the proposition, I should be in control of my body, my memories, my thoughts, my plans, then you have subject, object, and verbal, the active connection between them. These three aspects or wheels moving together are driving our continued existence in samsara. So, although it feels unnatural or unusual, we have to simply sit and not do anything. Because as we saw with slipping in the mountains, I'm slipping means I find myself slipping, not I intend to slip. So you have the same in the meditation. It's not that I get lost in what occurs, I find myself lost in what occurs. So this is the relation between simple knowing or awareness and the effortlessly arising energy of knowing. Everything which is occurring is the movement of the mind, but not the movement of my mind. I am a movement of my mind. I am not moving my mind, but I find myself, or I can be present in the moment of the movement of my mind, which is the revelation of my body, speech, and mind. So the instruction from the traditional text is when you're sitting, allow your mind just to move as it moves. It's called rangbap, means falling as it falls, like the rain or like a river tumbling down a mountainside. It comes as it comes. Now, if you are simply just there with it, not as a distant observer, because where would you be if you're observing? Oh, I'm over here. I'm inside myself. Who is inside? I am. Say, ego, shh, you don't know all about meditation. Every time you get involved in meditation, it goes wrong. You're shameless, show off, narcissistic troublemaker. Awareness, sweet, gentle, non pompous awareness. Please show us how it's done. Awareness is the revelatory or the displaying power of the mind. Just as the sun rises in the morning and the rays of light illuminate everything, Rigpa illuminates. It's not apart from what is occurring, it reveals what is occurring, it is everywhere. Just as the mirror doesn't move but allows reflections to arise in it, so awareness reveals the movement of the mind. The movement of the mind is in the mind. The mind is empty. And awareness is not doing anything. It's simply revealing the movement as it arises and passes, arises and passes. Awareness, what are you playing at? I'm just playing. I'm sitting here in the river and the water's washing with me. I can be in the river without getting wet. I don't have to sit on the bank of the river and look. Dualistic ego consciousness has to do that. So when we practice, we sit. And of course, when you sit, you have to put your bum on the seat. It's as if you're managing your body. Now you're sitting. You don't have to breathe. If you're not dead, breathing will occur. Don't do any yoga breathing, control your diaphragm, nothing, nothing. Simply stay open, present. Everything else is movement, sensation, memory, thought, feeling, movement. The mind is playing by itself. Now, if you catch a bit of the mind and you interrogate it, what are you doing? What game are you playing? Many, many games will unfold because the ego is extremely skilled in justifying its existence. The ego doesn't exist. So it is very, very skillful at inventing its existence in whatever form is required. These are the infinite games of samsara. There's no end to them. The games of the hells, the games of the god realms, the games of hopes and fears, regrets, the games of desire and aversion, and so on. Everywhere you look, politicians play games, bankers play games, firemen play games. But in the practice, we want to stay clear of games. We want to regress. I don't want to be 50. I don't want to be 20. I don't want to be 10. I want to be 3. Just sitting, big eyes, like sitting in the park, watching the big children go on the swings and down the slide. And see that every day. You go to the park, little one is looking. Do you want to do that? No. So this is our goal in meditation. Just sitting, waiting, nothing to do. I could do, when I'm big, I'm going to do that. But I don't want to do it because I can't do it. Rigpa awareness can't get into trouble. Ego gets in trouble. They are not essentially different because there are no essential entities ever, anywhere, at any time. ego, individual intelligence, our performativity. This is the energy of the mind. The energy of awareness moves like the energy of the mirror in its capacity to show reflections. The mirror is not moving, but the clarity of the mirror or the showingness of the mirror seems to move as it shifts around with these reflections. So the mirror moves without moving. If you hold up a mirror on a busy street, it shows many, many different things. There is no reflection without a mirror. So the mirror is here. The mirror is doing the reflection, looks that way because no reflection without a mirror. But what's the mirror doing? It's just there, open and available. That in itself allows the showing. So this is when we are sitting, a lot of experience is occurring. We can't say it has nothing to do with us because it's here with us. On the other hand, it doesn't define who we are because it changes and changes and changes, and we are just here as this open availability. So the more you sit in this way, the play of the mind becomes self-clarifying. There is play without intention. There is no game structure, no success and failure. If you enter into judgment, you will find yourself already in duality. I don't like this. That's the subjective side. This is not good. That's the objective side. Both, both are movements of the mind. This is the central point we have to really become clear about. I, me, myself, I, the subject, am a movement in the mind, not awareness. As soon as we feel ourselves to be something and we don't see the ground of this somethingness, then it is as if I am something. You look in the mirror, you see the reflection. It shows a lamp or a painting or your nose or something. Something is there. That is mental activity. What is there is illusion. There's nothing in the mirror. Empty show, pure appearance. So the more we simply sit, the more we see everything arises and vanishes. And then, when you arise from the meditation to make a cup of tea or to talk or to go to work, we do this like a reflection in the mirror. It is the emptiness of the mirror, the fact that it's not full of itself, that allows it to show different patterns. It is the emptiness of your pure awareness which allows all the rich diversity of the events of your daily life to manifest. So then the more you do this, the more you have confidence that life will unfold. You can release yourself from the prison of anxious observation. Did I say the right thing? Did I do the right thing? I better try harder next time. No need. It's already gone. Stay with the freshness of the unfolding of this moment. And because the field is non dual, that is to say, it's not made up of separate entities, some subject, some object, you will find yourself intuitively, spontaneously in the right place at the right time. Okay, so we come to the end for today. You can see the timetable on the website. Thank you to our translators in our different languages. The talk will become available later after Pedro has processed it. So I hope you found it useful, in that you were able to give it your focused attention. But of course, giving your focused attention to something outside yourself is not so hard and also not so beneficial. We will finish very soon and then it's over and life goes on. Then this is just a memory. But if you apply the same focused attention to the mind, does my mind have color? Does it have shape? then when you awaken to your mind, this is something that will stay with you forever. Okay, so the end. Nice to talk with you. Hope you had a good evening. Bye-bye.
Obrigado. Obrigado, James. Bye-bye.
Thank you, James.
Obrigado,
Thank you.
James.
Thanks,
Thank
James.
you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
James.
James. Thank you so much, James.
Thanks for that.
James.
James.
Nice.
Bye.